Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. It is time for a Friday dose of Obscurities in Literature. Now, this book may or may not look familiar to you because there have been quite a few like that on this channel at this point. This is the latest from Simon Roy, and I kind of wish it was numbered, but that's neither here nor there. But this is a star called The Sun. So this is an interesting book because prior to this, we've seen a lot of single story graphic novels from Simon Roy that he's published and crowdfunded at this point. This is a collection of earlier odds and ends from various places. Some were on Patreon, because I can remember seeing them there. Some were published in other magazines, other anthologies. And if you've heard me on this channel listening to various reviews, I really like anthologies. Been a big fan of heavy metal type stuff for many years. And Roy's work really fits in that kind of genre of sci-fi. It also really fits in well if you're a fan of Brandon Graham's Prophet Run, which any opportunity I have to lambast Image Comics for not putting out some kind of cohesive hardcover collected edition of that series is just an absolute travesty, and shame on them. Seriously, I really loved Prophet. Simon Roy did in fact work on quite a few of the early inaugural issues with Graham on that as well, so it doesn't come as much of a surprise, and they both have kind of a similar vein of storytelling in that slice of life far, far off into the distant future without a whole lot of explanation and, lore dumping on you, which I like. I mean, there is some there, and this book's kind of cool because even though it is a collection of short stories, if you've read any of Simon Roy's books, which if you haven't, again, shame on you. Go track them down. We'll have the link down below. There is a lot of cohesiveness and a shared universe. Even though it's not really like the typical comic book stuff, there are a lot of continual themes that kind of pop up, as well as characters, creatures, designs. There's a lot of that shows up in his work. And right off the bat, I absolutely love and appreciate, having grown up as I wait for the motorcyclist to stop trying to show off outside. Hopefully he's not picking up on the microphone. But one of the things I grew up with as a child of a big military history fan were all of the illustrated books, all of the Osprey uniform collections, all of the various, fighting vehicles, uniforms, and all that kind of stuff. Books upon books, and they're still on our shelves. And I know my dad is more than regularly picking those things up to peruse. And I'll be honest, every time I have an opportunity, I might take a look at them myself, just because the illustrations were a lot like this. And one of the things I love is all these uniforms and designs, at one point or another, do actually end up in a lot of his stories. So I do have a soft spot for that. One of the things, though, that I do have to say I get kind of annoyed with is, again, maybe this is just me and maybe this is just my poor eyesight as I'm getting older, is sometimes the font that he uses is a little difficult to read. When it's larger, I don't have a problem, but when it gets kind of squished in, like on some of the early stories, I had a tough time discerning what was actually being said. And one of the things that you'll see right away with Simon Roy's work is he's got this real fun thing with like bioorganic spacefarers. And again, like I said, not to just keep bringing up Prophet and the shamefulness that Image hasn't decided to republish it in a nicer format, especially in like a big oversized deluxe hardcover, because it's not like I wouldn't triple dip at this point on it, but that's a whole other story, right? There is a lot of bioorganic lived-in universe type stuff, and as somebody who has painted their fair share of Tyranids, I can appreciate it. And the stories aren't like any big major profane work. They're just kind of interesting, and a lot of them have to do with the settlements, if I remember, on Altamara, I think was the name of the planet that he has everything. I'm like, it's right here, but I can't see it. Altamira. Yeah. I believe a lot of the stories do take place on that planet. And it's not like super action-packed, not to say that there isn't action. And again, you see a lot of these designs show up in a lot of his other works. But here's a cool little thing. And I don't remember seeing this one before, and maybe that's just my memory getting hazy. But he's got this cool breakdown in the middle of the book of the various mech suits and designs that have shown up and just have been created. I almost want to assume for works like this. Again, just weird stuff. Lots of fun organics without explaining everything. Always the quirky robots, and I do want to say that one of... yeah, I thought so. Like, I knew I'd seen it. Thinking Machines, the Apostolic Congress. I want to say this was originally like a fanzine little mini publication that I got with a different book. And I don't remember which one now. A list of those. I'm not going to spoil them all. Breakdown of some of the alien life forms. And again, I feel like I've seen that somewhere as well. I want to say, is this the one that was originally published in one of the X-Mags? Just a lot of fun, interesting stuff. And what I've always mentioned appreciating on this channel before is when we get some interior looks into the artists' ideas. I liked Island Magazine. I know we did the cover there. Wasn't that where Habitat was being serialized originally? Can't remember. Just lots of interesting stuff in here. A couple pinups in the back. Like I said, if you dig these types of books, especially if you like something different when it comes to sci-fi, I can't recommend these enough. Like I said, they're not like the most world-shattering, mind-altering, profound moments in literature, but they're just fun. And to me, that's really the important thing. I want some enjoyment out of it. I don't need to have, my entire worldview rewritten. I want to appreciate and enjoy something if I'm going to spend my time sitting down to read something. Because honestly, I read all day. I mean, I'm a teacher. I have to read pretty awful stuff sometimes. So when I take time to read, and this is the thing that like non-teacher people don't get, they're like, I thought you loved books. Yeah, I do. I love books a lot, but for me to actually sit down after a long day of work to want to spend time with a book, it's got to be something entertaining and fun. And I feel like A Star Called the Sun, much like most of the other books from Simon Roy at this point, did not disappoint in that regard. So if that sounds of interest to you, if that has somehow pushed you towards wanting to check his stuff out, then I guess congratulations. Good choice. Anyway, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye!